Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming together to embrace one another, to embrace this text, to add to the text, to add to each other with our respectful, collaborative conversations across time and across space and across with one another. We are in Parshat Vayishlach in the book of Genesis, begins with chapter 32, verse 4. We'll read through the English translation of our portion. I'll share with you a focused study about it, and then we'll open it up for our collaborative conversation about it. If you'd like to go ahead and unmute at this time, together we can recite the blessing, giving thanks for the opportunity of this blessed moment. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu v'tivanu so b'divrei Torah. Thank you, God, for the opportunity to immerse ourselves in words, deeds, and relationships of Torah. Again, we begin with chapter 32, verse 4. I'll share with you the opening verses, and then I'll offer others an opportunity to read as well. Jacob sent messengers ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, and instructed them as follows. Thus shall you say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I stayed with Laban and remained until now. I have acquired cattle, asses, sheep, and male and female slaves, and I send this message to my lord in the hope of gaining your favor. The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau. He himself is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him. Jacob was greatly frightened. In his anxiety, he divided the people with him, and the flocks and herds and camels into two camps, thinking, Esau comes to one camp and attacks it, the other camp may yet escape. Richard, would you like to read starting at verse 10?
Thank you, yes. Then Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your native land and I will deal bountifully with you. I am unworthy of all the kindness that you have so steadfastly shown your servant, and my staff alone I crossed the Jordan. And now I have become two camps. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, else I fear he may come and strike me down, mothers and children alike. Yet you have said, I will deal bountifully with you, and make your offspring as the sands of the sea, which are too numerous to count.
Thank you so much. Kath, in verse 14.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi. After spending the night there, he selected from what was at hand these presents for his brother Esau: 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 he-asses. These he put in the charge of his servants, drove by drove, and he told his servants, go on ahead and keep a distance between droves. He instructed the one in front as follows. When my brother Esau meets you and asks you, who's your master? Where are you going? And whose animals are these ahead of you? You shall answer, your servant Jacob's. They are a gift sent to my lord Esau, and Jacob himself is right behind us. He gave similar instructions to the second one and the third, and all the others who followed the droves, namely, thus and so shall you say to Esau when you reach him. And you shall add, and your servant Jacob himself is right behind us. For he reasoned, if I propitiate him with presents in advance and then face him, perhaps he will show me favor. And so the gift went on ahead while he remained in camp that night.
Thank you. Jerry, would you like to read there at verse 23?
Yes, thank you. That same night he arose, and taking his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children, he crossed the ford of the Jabbok. After taking them across the stream, he sent across all his possessions. Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. When he saw that he had not prevailed against him, he wrenched Jacob's hip at its socket, so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for dawn is breaking." But he answered, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Said the other, "What is your name?" He replied, "Jacob." He said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with the beings divine and human and have prevailed." Jacob asked, "Pray tell me your name." But he said, "You must not ask my name." And he took leave of him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, meaning, "I have seen a divine, being face to face, yet my life has been preserved." The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping on his hip. That is why the children of Israel to this very day do not eat the thigh muscle that is on the socket of the hip, since Jacob's hip socket was wrenched at the thigh muscle.
Thank you. Steve, would you like to read at the very start of chapter 33?
Yes, thank you. Looking up, Jacob saw Esau coming, accompanied by 400 men. He divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two maids, putting the maids and their children first, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. He himself went on ahead and bowed low to the ground 7 times until he was near his brother. Esau ran to greet him. He embraced him, and falling on his neck, he kissed him, and they wept. Looking about, he saw the women and the children. "Who," he asked, "are these with you?" He answered, "The children with whom God has favored your servant." Then the maids with their children came forward and bowed low. Next, Leah with her children came forward and bowed low. And last, Joseph and Rachel came forward and bowed low. "And," he asked, "what do you mean by all this company which I have met?" He answered, "To gain my Lord's favor." Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Let what you have remain yours." But Jacob said, "No, I pray you, if you would do me this favor, accept from me this gift. For to see your face is like seeing the face of God, and you have received me favorably. Please accept my present, which has been brought to you. For God has favored me, and I have plenty." And when he urged him, he accepted.
Thank you. Joan, do you want to read starting at verse 12?
And Esau said, "Let us start on our journey, and I will proceed at your pace." But he said to him, "My Lord knows that the children are frail, that the flocks and herds which are nursing are a care to me. If they are driven hard a single day, all the flocks will die. Let my Lord go on ahead of his servant, while I travel slowly at the pace of the cattle before me, and at the pace of the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir." Then Esau said, "Let me assign to you some of the men who are with me." But he said, "Oh, no, my Lord is too kind to me." So Esau started back that day on his way to Seir. But Jacob journeyed on to Succoth and built a house for himself and made stalls for his cattle. That is why the place was called Succoth.
And one more paragraph. Mhm.
Right.
18.
Jacob arrived safe in the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, having come thus from Paddan Aram, and he encamped before the city. Parcel of land where he pitched his tent he purchased from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 kesitas. He set up an altar there and called it Elohim Israel.
Thank you so much. Tony, would you like to read starting at the very beginning of chapter 34?
Thank you. Now Dinah, the daughter whom Leah had borne to Jacob, went out to visit the daughters of the land. Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, chief of the country, saw her and took her and lay with her by force. Being strongly drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob, and in love with the maiden, he spoke to the maiden tenderly. So Shechem said to his father Hamor, "Get me this girl as a wife." Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah, but since his sons were in the field with his cattle, Jacob kept silent until they came home. Then Shechem's father Hamor came out to Jacob to speak to him. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons, having heard the news, came in from the field. The men were distressed and very angry because he had committed an outrage in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing not to be done.
Thank you so much. Mark, would you like to read starting at verse 8? And you'll have to unmute.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Hamor spoke with them, saying, "My son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him in marriage. Intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us, and take our daughters for yourselves. You will dwell among us, and the land will be open before you. Settle, move about, and acquire holdings in it." Then Shechem said to her father and brothers, "Do me this favor, and I will pay whatever you tell me. Ask of me a bride price ever so high, as well as gifts, and I will pay what you tell me. Only give me the maiden for a wife." Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father Hamor, speaking with guile because he had defiled their sister Dinah, and said to them, "We cannot do this thing to give our sister to a man who is uncircumcised, for that is a disgrace among us. Only on this condition will we agree with you, that you will become like us in that every male among you is circumcised. Then we will give our daughters to you and take your daughters to ourselves, and we will dwell among you and become as one kindred."
Thank you so much. Let me invite Karen, if you'd like to continue there at verse 17. I'm sorry.
Thank you. "But if you will not listen to us and become circumcised, we will take our daughter and go." Their words pleased Hamor and Hamor's son Shechem, and the youth lost no time in doing the thing, for he wanted Jacob's daughter. Now he was the most respected in his father's home. So Hamor and his son Shechem went to the public space of their town and spoke to their fellow townsmen, saying, "These people are our friends. Let them settle in the land and move about in it, for the land is large enough for them. We will take their daughters to ourselves as wives and give our daughters to them. But only on this condition will the men agree with us to dwell among us and be as one kindred, that all our males become circumcised as they are circumcised. Their cattle and substance and all their beasts will be ours, if we only agree to their terms, so that they will settle among us." All who went out of the gate of the town heeded Hamor and his son Shechem, and all males, all those who went out of the gate of this town were circumcised.
Thank you,
From the
Karen.
third-
Let me invite Robert. Would you like to continue there at verse 25?
Yes, thank you. "And it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword and came upon the city boldly and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city, because they had defiled their sister. They took their sheep and their oxen and their asses, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones, and their wives took they captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, Ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, Should he deal with our sister as with an harlot? And God said unto Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel, and dwell there, and make there an altar unto God, that appeared unto thee when thou fleddest from the face of Esau thy brother. Then Jacob said unto his household, and to all that were with him, Put away the strange gods that are among you, and be clean, and change your garments, and let us arise, and go up to Bethel, and I will make there an altar unto God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and was with me in the way which I went. And they gave unto Jacob all the strange gods which were in their hand, and all their earnings which were in their earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was by Shechem. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were round about them, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob.
Thank you so much. And let me invite Jim. Would you like to continue there at verse 6?
Thank you, Rabbi. Thus Jacob came to Luz, that is Bethel, in the land of Canaan, he and all the people who were with him. There he built an altar and named the site El Bethel, for it was there that God had revealed himself to him when he was fleeing from his brother. Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried under the oak below Bethel, so it was named Alon Bakuth. God appeared again to Jacob on his arrival from Paddan Aram, and he blessed him. God said to him, You whose name is Jacob, you shall be called Jacob no more, but Israel shall be your name. Thus he named him Israel. And God said to him, I am El Shaddai. Be fertile and increase. A nation, yea, an assembly of nations shall descend from you. Kings shall issue from your loins. The land that I assigned to Abraham and Isaac, I assign to you, and to your offspring to come will I assign the land. God parted from him at the spot where he had spoken to him, and Jacob set up a pillar at the site where he had spoken to him, a pillar of stone, and he offered a libation on it and poured oil upon it. Jacob gave the site where God had spoken to him the name Bethel.
Thank you so much, Jim. Marty, would you like to continue there at verse 16?
Thank you, Rabbi. They set out from Bethel, but when they were still some distance short of Ephrath, Rachel was in childbirth, and she had hard labor. When her labor was at its hardest, the midwife said to her, Have no fear, for it is another boy for you. But as she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named him Ben-Oni, but his father called him Benjamin. Thus Rachel died. She was buried on the road to Ephrath, now Bethlehem. Over her grave, Jacob set up a pillar, and it is the pillar at Rachel's grave to this day. Israel journeyed on and pitched his tent beyond Migdal Edar. While Israel stayed in that land, Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel found out. Now the sons of Jacob were 12 in number. The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel, Joseph, and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's maid, Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's maid, Gad and Asher. These are the sons of Jacob who were born to him in Paddan Aram. And Jacob came to his father Isaac at Mamre, at Kiriath Arba, now Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had sojourned. Isaac was 180 years old when he breathed his last and died. He was gathered to his kin in ripe old age, and he was buried by his sons Esau and Jacob.
Thank you so much. And Catherine, would you like to read at the very start? At the very start of chapter 36?
Thank you, Rabbi. This is the line of Esau, that is Edom. Esau took his wives from among the Canaanite women, Adah, daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, daughter of Anna, daughter of Zibeon the Hivite, and also Basemath, daughter of Ishmael and sister of Nebaoth. Adah bore to Esau Basemath bore Reuel, and Oholibamah bore Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. Those were the sons of Esau who were born to him in the land of Canaan. Esau took his wives, his sons and daughters, and all the members of his household, his cattle and all his livestock, and all the property that he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and went to another land because of his brother Jacob. For their possessions were too many for them together, and the land where they sojourned could not support them because of their livestock. So Esau settled in the hill country of Seir, Esau being Edom. This then is the line of Esau, the ancestor of the Edomites in the hill country of Seir.
Thank you so much. Justin, if you'd like to continue there at verse 10.
Thank you, Rabbi. These are the names of Esau's sons. Eliphaz, son of Adah, the wife of Esau. Reuel, son of Basemath, the wife of Esau. The sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was a concubine to Eliphaz, son of Esau, and she bore to Eliphaz Amalek. These are the sons of Adah, the wife of Esau. And these are the sons of Reuel: Nahat, Zerah, Shammah, and Mitzah. These are the sons of Basemath, the wife of Esau. And these are the sons of Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, daughter of Zibeon, the wife of Esau. She bore to Esau Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. These became the chieftains of the sons of Esau, the sons of Eliphaz, Esau's firstborn: Chief Teman, Chief Omar, Chief Zepho, Chief Kenaz, Chief Korah, Chief Gatam, Chief Amalek. These are the chieftains of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Adah. And these are the sons of Reuel, the son of Esau, chief of Nahat, chief Zerah, chief Shammah, and chief Mitzah. These are the chieftains of Reuel in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Basemath, the wife of Esau. And these are the sons of Oholibamah, the wife of Esau, chief Jeush, chief Jalam, chief Korah. These are the chieftains of Oholibamah, daughter of Anna, the wife of Esau. These are the sons of Esau, and these are the chieftains. He is Edom. These are the sons of Seir, the Horite, the inhabitants of the land: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, and Anna. Dishon Ezer, and Dishan. These are the chieftains of the Horites, the sons of Seir in the land of Edom.
Thank you so much. Continuing at verse 22. The sons of Lotan were Hori and Heman, and Lotan's sister was Timnah. The sons of Shobal were these: Alvan, Manachach, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. The sons of Zibeon were these: Ea and Anna. That was the Anna who discovered the hot springs in the wilderness while pasturing the asses of his father Zibeon. The children of Anna were these: Dishon and Anna's daughter Oholibamah. The sons of Dishon were these: Hemdan, Eshban, Itran, and Cheran. The sons of Ezer were these: Bilchan, Zavan, and Akan. And the sons of Dishon were these: Uz and Aram. These are the clans of the Horites, the clans Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anna, Dishan, Ezer, and Dishan. Those are the clans of the Horites, clan by clan, in the land of Seir. These are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king reigned over the Israelites. Bela, son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Dinhabah. When Bela died, Jobab, son of Zerah from Bozrach, succeeded him as king. When Jobab died, Husham of the land of the Temanites succeeded him as king. When Husham died, Hadad, son of Bedad, who defeated the Midianites in the country of Moab, succeeded him as king. The name of his city was Avith. When Hadad died, Samlah of Masrekah succeeded him as king. When Samlah died, Saul of Rehoboth on the river succeeded him as king. When Saul died, Baal Hanan, son of Achbor, succeeded him as king. And when Baal Hanan, son of Achbor, died, Hadar succeeded him as king. The name of his city was Pau, and his wife's name was Mechetabel, daughter of Matra, daughter of Mizacham. These are the names of the clans of Esau, each with its families and locality, name by name. The clans Timnah, Alva, Jetheth, Oholibamah, Elah, Pinon, Kenaz, Timon, Mibzar, Magdiel, and Eram. Those are the clans of Edom, that is, of Esau, father of the Edomites, by their settlements in the land which they hold. Thank you all very much. That's our Torah portion for the week. If you have a copy of the study sheet, I invite you to take it out at this moment. And I have entitled this week's study sheet, When the Sublime and the Mundane Embrace. Certainly there's a lot of material in this week's Torah portion, not the least significant of which is the concluding portions which Catherine, Justin, and I shared with you about Esau and his line. But it's perhaps one of the more dramatic moments is this wrestling match that occurs as Jacob is about to meet his brother Esau, whom he hasn't seen in 20 years. And so this notion of this wrestling match that happens, I'm playing with this notion about sublime and mundane. And I'd like to just explore that a little bit, both in the text that I'll share with you and some of the commentaries, and then eventually in the painting that I shared that's by Thomas Moran. So first I begin by actually taking a step back from the very beginning of this week's Torah portion and looking at how last week's Torah portion ends. And that's from chapter 32, verse 3, where Jacob is about to leave Laban. He heads out on his journey. And as he goes on his way, angels of God encounter him. And then it says, and when Jacob saw them, Jacob said, this is God's camp. So he named that place Machanaim. Machanaim literally means two camps. So we're going to explore how that gets replicated both in the text and in the narrative itself. So moving into this week's Torah portion, we see here in verse 8 of chapter 32, Jacob was greatly frightened in anticipation of meeting his brother. In his anxiety, he divided the people with him and the flocks and herds and camels into 2 camps, thinking if Esau comes to one camp and attacks it, the other camp may yet escape. And then a couple of verses later, in verse 11, he says, Jacob said, praying out to God, I am unworthy of all the kindness that you, God, have so steadfastly shown your servant. With my staff alone, I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become 2 camps. In Hebrew, it says, Shnei Mechanot, 2 camps. So here, this image of Jacob dividing, both physically dividing all of his people and his possessions into 2 different camps, but then also talking about himself as being split into 2 camps. There's a way in which this anxiety that he's experiencing before meeting up with his brother is really causing him to express himself as being a divided person. And he seems to be divided not only by the anxiety, but also seems to be divided by, on the one hand, he's been promised a lot by God, but what he sees before him is the possibility that it's all going to be destroyed. And so he maybe is also torn between, is everything going to work out okay because that's what I was promised, or is everything going to be destroyed because that's what my eyes are now seeing in front of me and what my heart is also feeling. So here we have this notion about Jacob being thus divided. And so right before he meets up with his brother, he has this dream or this experience or this vision of wrestling with, whether you want to say it's another being or whether you want to say it's an internal grappling that he engages in. So here are some commentaries in number 3 about the nature of this wrestling that Jacob engages in. This is from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who died just a few years ago. He was a chief rabbi in England, an Orthodox rabbi, and he wrote, fearing the confrontation with Esau, Jacob wanted to run away, and God sent an angel to wrestle with him, to stop him doing so. On this reading, God was teaching Jacob how to wrestle with his fears and defeat them. Then we have another commentary. This is from Rabbi Beno Jacob, who was a mid-20th century German rabbi, primarily in Berlin, fled Berlin in the late 30s and resettled in London. And he was raised within what was then be considered the liberal wing of Judaism within that developed particularly within Germany. And he said this about this wrestling match: God answers a person's prayers if the person prays by searching himself, becoming his own opponent. So whereas Rabbi Jonathan Sachs kind of takes the view that there is this externality that is sending a messenger to Jacob to teach Jacob that one can overcome one's fears, Rabbi Beno Jacob is placing the source for this initiative within Jacob himself. That is, to the extent that Jacob is realizing his prayers by becoming his own opponent, as Rabbi Jacob puts it. And then our third commentary comes from the 19th century Hasidic rabbi Sfat Emet, who in a sense takes it, what Rabbi Jacob is saying, perhaps even in a more radical way. And he quotes the verse, I will deal with you in great goodness. This suggests that God promises Jacob that his sense of his own life will share in the experience of God's goodness. God will not merely be good to Jacob, God will make Jacob accomplice in the benign self-creation of Israel. So Sfat Emet seems to be saying that what the nature of God is not so much an externality that causes something or brings something to Jacob, but that the divine is that power within Jacob of his capacity, as he puts it, to be an accomplice in the benign self-creation of his new self, which is called Israel. So, as the outcome of this wrestling match, if you turn over the study sheet number 4, we have this proclamation from the divine saying, "No longer will your name be Jacob, but Israel." And I know here the Hebrew, which gives rise to this name Israel, by combining the Hebrew verb sarah and the word el. The word sarah means to persist, to exert oneself, to persevere, and El is one of the many names that we have for God. So one can either read the name Israel as the apparent text encourages us to read it, which is that Israel means that one has struggled with God, and the text says with beings divine and human, or perhaps one can just read it as God is perseverance. God is exerting oneself, that the nature of what the divine is all about is not to collapse in the face of anxieties and crises, but to somehow struggle with those crises and those anxieties and to emerge from it transformed, which is what happens to Jacob. He emerges from this wrestling match transformed, both physically, because he has this limp that he now has in his hip socket, and he emerges spiritually transformed, which is evidenced by the change of his name. In part, what's happening in part in this chapter, in this portion, is a kind of evolution of Jacob. We encountered Jacob where he had the dream with the ladder. We encountered him before that when he was when he was disguising himself as his brother so he could get the blessing that was due his older brother Esau. So we encountered him first as his heel grabber. You remember that's how he was born, holding on to Esau's heel because he wanted to come out first. So he's his heel grabber, and then we encounter him as what I call a transactionalist, that is trying to make deals. That's the way I read Jacob responding to this awesome dream of the ladder and God standing by him, and Jacob saying, well, okay, if you get me food and you get me clothes and you keep me safe, then you'll be my God. So some kind of a bargaining going on, and we see that when he settles in with Laban for many years, where he engages in this transactional nature of building up wealth. And then we encounter him in this week's Torah portion as a God wrestler. And then eventually towards the end of this portion, he returns to the place of that dream and promise, Bethel, and he builds an altar there. So there's some kind of a cycling in this week's portion from Jacob as mere child, mere heel grabber, mere competitor, mere accumulator of wealth, to some kind of struggle within himself that causes him to then return to the place of promise where he honors what that promise was all about. What's fascinating, of course, is that's not where this portion ends. This portion ends with this terrible incident at Shechem. And I find it fascinating that story comes right after this wonderful transformation that he has gone through and risen above these fears and anxieties and become a different person. It is almost as if Torah is trying to say, one wrestling match isn't going to do it. One struggle within yourself is not going to resolve everything for you, because there'll be more crises. And the likelihood is that you're going to face that crisis, and you might fail that time. You might, and indeed, one of the significant aspects of the encounter at Shechem is that Jacob is completely silent when presented with what seems to be a terribly traumatic thing and an act of violence having happened with his daughter, depending on how one reads that incident. But he is silent while his sons rise up in fury and indignation and violence. And through all that, Jacob remains silent. And really, it's not until after the acts of violence have been committed that Jacob says, "Oh, what have you done to me now?" So Torah seems to be indicating that, yes, this is a magnificent epiphany that Jacob has in this wrestling encounter, but it's not sufficient for any of us to transform us permanently. It's an ongoing act, this kind of wrestling we need to engage in. So here is from psychologist Dr. Margie Worrell, who wrote a lot about how do we overcome moments of confusion, discontinuity, and crisis. And so here's from something she wrote. When will this crisis be over? The unpleasant truth is no one knows. Harder still is that even when we declare this crisis behind us, the life we get back to will not be the one it was. Some of the most profound chapters in our lives won't even get a title until much later. So uncertain and uncomfortable as this crisis may be, it holds a powerful catalyst for profound transformation, individually and collectively. Collectively, it invites us to transcend the divisive, ego-dominated paradigms that keep us from rallying together to create a more sustainable, compassionate, and courageous world. With that, I'd like to take a look at our painting. Our painting is by Thomas Moran, who was a mid-late 19th century American artist. He was born in England. His family moves to the United States. And Thomas Moran began really by painting vast landscapes of the American West. And then this painting, which he did, I believe it was about 1877, is fascinating because there is a lot of meeting of different worlds that's happening in this painting. The first is what's happening in terms of the content, the narrative, which is the sun is descending and it is bringing this fire to a watery realm. And you can see on the painting, in the painting, that the sides of the painting are divided as well. The right-hand side is darker, the left-hand side is lighter. The right-hand side, the waters seem to be more turbulent. The left-hand side, the waters seem to be a little bit calmer. And it may be hard for you to see, but in the middle, towards the bottom, there's some white flecks. Those are birds that are flying from the dark side to the light side. And in the middle, above the waterline, you see there a bit of land in the middle there, and there's an arch of bridging the two sides of that body of land. So there's a lot of division within the painting itself, and it is as if these two dimensions of fire and water are coming in contact with one another. What is the outcome of that contact? Well, it's unclear from the painting. Is it provide you as a viewer with a sense of hope that light will bring, the sun will bring light to a dark world? Or does it bring to you a sense of anxiety that the water is going to extinguish the light? I think the painter, Thomas Moran, leaves that up to us as the viewer. The other kind of encounter of two different worlds has to do with the style of the painting itself. There is one level in which he is continuing in this painting a style of painting that was prominent from 1850s through the 1870s in the United States, and that's Luminism. And Luminism is a form of painting that really emphasized smooth, slick finish, cool, clear colors, almost like they were photographs used of landscapes and seascapes. He also brings in a relatively new and radical style of painting, which was becoming very prominent and experimented with primarily in France, and that is Impressionism. And unlike Luminism, which emphasized detail and hid the brush marks of the painter, Impressionism was the complete opposite. It fuzzed detail, didn't emphasize detail, and emphasized instead the brushstrokes of the painter. So here is a remarkable feat that Moran has done, which is in this painting describing the encounter of different worlds. He has brought together two different styles of painting, which are in some ways very much in conflict. So to the extent that you feel that a great beautiful work of art has been produced as a result of it, I think that's part of Moran's genius that he's accomplished here. So I just want to share with you, as we begin to open up our conversation collectively, this notion of Jacob moving from being a merely transactional person to a transformed and transformational person. I want to just share with you perhaps just some principles that we might keep in mind as we seek in our own daily lives to move from merely being transactional to being transformational. Know that you have all that you need within you. Know that you contain the power of loving creation. Focus on blessing others rather than seeking to receive anything from others. And trust that fulfillment is realized in and through relationships of mutuality with others. And with that, I'd like to open it up to hear what you saw and you experienced, and perhaps we'll, if it's with your permission, we'll extend our conversation a little bit past our usual time so that we can all share what we read and what we experienced. If you raise your hand, I'd love to call upon you. Go ahead, Catherine.
Okay. I want to focus a little bit on the wrestling passage, because I sort of read it allegorically as a kind of return to Jacob grabbing Esau's heel. Mm-hmm. And here we have a wrestling which is not taking place in the womb, but maybe it's this sort of imaginary space in which Jacob can wrestle with his fears of what his brother will do to him. And he ends up injured, which is kind of interesting, right? That he doesn't come out of the wrestling match unscathed, but then he's able to persevere. So
tell me about, so first of all, what you shared, there's actually a lot of midrash that shares that notion that he's wrestling with either Esau himself or some guardian spirit that represents Esau. And tell me about the injury. Tell me why you think that's significant.
Because it's a lesser consequence of that encounter than what he fears may happen. So it's sort of playing out his fear, but in miniature, so to speak.
So it's interesting.
That he can move beyond it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You got me to think about it. It's interesting to think about the character rather than emerging from this fully triumphant emerging from it humbled by having this injury. So thank you very much, Ken. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me invite Justin.
Thank you, Rabbi. And respecting all of the incredible text that's here, I'm just acknowledging the painting and really the celestial passages and the way that light is in there is just, it's just so wonderful to play with those qualities and colors. I think it's somewhere between the chartreuse and these dark grays, and I just but the experience of the entire painting is activated. The entire landscape is in an active flux of transition. The light is showing the activity that's going on, and the question still is like somehow of where is the containment in this? And I do believe that it just I don't know where this is going, but I do believe in that in the reading of the Torah portion, this dividing of camps. I heard the deepest concern of Jacob in that divide, and I just really appreciated the manner in which that goes. So I don't know if there's a transition between this incredibly colorful landscape that's active in so many ways. How is there a boat to get to shore?
That's nice. Thank you. How is there a boat to get to shore? Thank you. Okay, and Robert.
Well, I want to comment on the text, but if you look very carefully at this picture, 3/4 of the way to the right, you'll see a face. That face has an arm and a body. It's very interesting. You cannot tell, is it falling backward into the darkness or becoming part of the light? I'm sorry, that's just exquisite. And if you look for it, you see it. And it's like a young person's like this, and I'm going to go for the light. What I wanted to comment on was the text. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Amor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And, I'd like to use that as a symbol because at one level, if we take it literally, there's vengeance. And of course, God can be vengeful. But when I think of here it says that she's beautiful. We know that she's pure, she's undefiled, and she's young and capable to bear fruit. Children, generation after generation, will come from her. That is a symbol of the religion of God, to my mind. Now, when you look at Shechem, who's going to defile her, I would look at it at those who would defile the faith of the Israelites and corrupt the religion of God. Now it becomes not an issue of vengeance, and of course God has that right, but one of justice, because then it's each one receiving his due. I think it makes for an exquisite symbol. If we look at the Baha'i writings, Islam, and is it Isaiah, where the handmaid came down like the city of Jerusalem. That's a symbol of the religion of God. And I think, look, this was given 3,500 years ago. And I think there's so much here that is symbolic and deep that, some of these, I'm sorry, they're just irresistible for me to understand a particular way. I'm not saying that's the correct way, but for me, I view it that way.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It's opening up some new lines of thought for me, which I'll share in a moment. And others want to...
Can I just... Is Dina reflective of the din, of the quality of judgment? And so, I mean, it's paradoxical to see the din, the judgment so embodied into the feminine form like this. But I mean, if that judgment, if that din, the midos of din is, I mean, I don't know. Is that part of this nature or this thing?
So that's a very interesting line of discussion to open up about the extent to which Dina represents an evocation of some kind of judgment, and so thank you for that. All right, and others here. So let me perhaps then draw some of this to a conclusion by saying one of the more remarkable for me, at least what struck me, is when we get to the end of this week's portion with in chapter 36, we have 43 verses, all of them describing the line of Esau. And the tradition is to acknowledge that that words in Torah are very precious, and so to devote 43 verses to describing the lines of Esau is not a mere add-on. There's something significant happening here. So if we are talking about a Torah portion, which has to do with both division and reconciliation, with different aspects within ourselves and different aspects out in the exterior world, and some kind of engagements periodically between those different aspects, dimensions, and elements in the world. Torah, in a way, as I read it this year, seems to be alerting us to that this chapter, this portion, which is focused so much on Jacob and as this primary protagonist, but and what happens with him, but the chapter ends with Esau and his line, and that group of people that will become relatively insignificant within the written text itself. But it is as if Torah is reminding us they are also there. And so this notion about having to live in a world both externally and internally, where these different elements, aspects, and dimensions exist, and often, and perhaps most ideally, come into engagement with one another, and that's where richness may happen. So I want to thank each and every one of you for enriching my life and opening up new thoughts for me, and giving me that sense of courage and resiliency to keep on this path of being vulnerable to differences, and to having the courage to wrestle with the differences both within and outside of me. Thank you all for that, and God bless you all. Look forward to our next gathering. Be well, everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Thank you.